Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today you are joining me in an Audi Q3, and the purpose of today's vid is going to be, if you've got a budget of 10 to 15k and you're looking for a small premium SUV, I'm going to try and give you my impressions whether this is the type of car that you should be buying. I'm going to start doing a series of these vids if you've got a budget of a certain amount and what type of car that you could buy. So hopefully stay tuned for more of these type of vids. So first of all, I'm going to give you a walk around of this car, show you the highlights of this particular model, and then take you for a drive and conclude whether this is the type of car that I would suggest that you buy based on my impressions. The Audi Q3, here we go. This is an Audi Q3 finished off in a solid white colour, a 2016 model year car and a facelift. Now the key features of a facelift from the front end are this grille is a little bit more prominent, it's got a wider fascia. I'll throw in a picture of a pre-facelift car from the front end as well so you can tell the key differences. This being the facelift has a full LED headlamp which now integrates the fog lamps, because previously the fog lamps were in this kind of section of the lower bumper, and now it's just a hard piece of plastic mesh which doesn't really do much, but there we go. I think the front end does look quite nice, quite modern, in keeping with the current kind of Audi range. Let me know what you think of the front end of this Audi Q3. Now this is an S-Line, which now means that it has 18-inch alloy wheels. These are a standard fit. My personal opinion, those alloy wheels do look a little bit small. I would probably opt for at least a 19-inch wheel, which was an option. It does have an S-Line badge on the side here as well. Overall, I think the car does have decent proportions, but in some angles it does look a little bit weak. Looks a bit like a small Rhino at times, but there we go. Let me know in the comments what you kind of think about this car. So if we move to the rear end of the car, I do like how it looks from the rear end. The tail lamps are full LED. They do have the strobing LED indicator, which looks pretty cool on something like this and more in keeping with current Audis, including like my A7. You do also have on the lower bumper another light feature here, which I'll demonstrate shortly what that's for, and also something that you don't find on modern Audis now, twin exhaust pipes which are actually real as well. I think from this angle the car does look pretty cool, especially being like an SUV. It does have that kind of like a rakish SUV look as well. Aluminium roof rails are a feature of the S-Line Q3, which again give it a nice little profile looking at it from this view here, but for some reason I think the front doesn't look as cool as the rear. Again, my opinion. Let's just move into the car. So from behind the wheel of the car, the steering wheel does have a good feel. Leather wrap, perforated leather edges. It's not flat bottom, but you do have an S-Line badge here, which is pretty cool. And the center boss as well, which makes it look quite sporty. Now you have got analog dials, which isn't a bad thing. You've got a driver's display there, which features quite a few options on there as well. The rest of the interior does look like it's quite dated, but having said that, it does feel like it's of good quality and it's built to last. Like for example, the door tops here are quite nice and soft. All the switchgear feels quite nice. You've got a nice bit of fabric in the door card as well, and the feel of like the buttons and the dials, everything just seems like it's, you know, kind of built to last. It does have like a CD player. I don't know who has CDs these days, but there you are. It is, you know, built on probably an old platform, and one way you can tell is that the ventilation controls down here look like they're straight out of like a 2007 Audi A3. This does have a DSG gearbox, or a S-Tronic as Audi call it in this car. This is a 1.4 TSI engine, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail, but one other way you can tell that the tech in this car is quite old is you've got this foldable screen. Now it's functional, it's quite good, but you've got this dial here, so it's like a old MMI setup, which means that you just go through the different controls and stuff, but you've also got some shortcuts. So rather than fiddling with like all of this, you can just press car and it will take you into the car menu. Now this does have like a drive select, and for that you have a drive select button here as well. So there's quite a few options on this car, which, you know, you can play around with. But if you're looking for like a modern Audi, this isn't it, because this is like from an era where, you know, the tech is a little bit old from that point. So one thing to know are that these seats are quite comfortable. As you can see here, they're half leather and half fabric. They are manually operated, but you do have a 4-way electrically operated lumbar support, which I think helps quite a bit with this type of car as well. But overall, generally, like the fit and finish of this car, like all typical Audis, it's solid. It does look a bit dated, but it's very functional, and I think on an everyday basis you won't have any issues driving this car or, you know, sitting in it. It's quite a good place to sit. So earlier on I was talking about the tail lights of this car. Well, now we can see them in operation. We've got the dynamic indicator, which is very cool, very in keeping with current Audi designs, including my Audi A7. I'm now going to talk about the little light feature that we have on the lower bumper of this Q3. I'm going to go ahead and open the rear door of the car, or the boot. It's electrically operated, clamshell design, in that the lights also lift up as they're fitted to the overall boot. So now we don't have any lights up there. Now I was running the hazards, and you can see them flash up on the rear light system on the bottom of the bumper, as well as the daytime lights that we had running on the car as well. So now that the hatch is open, let's talk about the boot size. Now this is probably a little bit bigger than your average hatchback. You do have a nice scuff plate here, so it doesn't scuff your paint when you're loading and unloading. The overall boot is probably big enough for a regular size push pram, golf clubs, weekly shopping and whatnot, so I think it's pretty decent from that point. You do have, doing a full-on practical test here, but you do have some hooks here to hang your shopping off, there and there. Got a little light there, but I can't seem to find like a 12-watt socket to plug in like a little hoover to hoover this up, hence why we've got this cover here to stop like the actual carpets getting dirty. There we are. Electrically operated tail gate, whatever you want to call it. So the engine of this car is a TFSI unit. It's a 1.4 TFSI. It's familiar to me because I had the same engine in my Golf GT edition not long ago, which was also a 2016 model year car. It's quite cool because it has a 2-cylinder mode, whereby when you're just coasting along, the car will just shut off 2 of its cylinders to optimize fuel economy. It has about 150 horsepower and 250 newton meters of torque. The only thing is though, is that enough to pull a car of this size? Now this unit is mated to a 6-speed S-tronic gearbox, and I'm wondering how that's gonna not affect, but how that's gonna play with, like, say, the driving dynamics and how it's gonna make this car feel on the road. So that's something that I want to test out. So guys, let me know what you think so far about this Q3. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I'm gonna give the car a start up, give you some revs, because we're in an empty car park anyway, so why not? And then I'm going to take you on those roads and see how this car actually drives like. It's even got a soft limiter at 3,500–4,000 RPM. So I think that was pretty unnecessary and pointless. Yeah, I don't know why I even bother doing something like that on this type of car, but I think let's get back to the point. Let's take this for a drive, give you more driving impressions, and whether you should spend about 10 to 15k on the car like this or not. So the Audi Q3, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the driving impressions on this car. Now this is a Generation 1 Q3. This is the facelift, like I've said as well, so I can't imagine it'll be hugely different to, let's say, a Q3 that's the pre-facelift to drive. Might be a few like interior changes, like a trim or whatever, but other than that, I think on the whole it'll be the same. This is the front wheel drive car as well, so you can opt this with a number of different options. So you can get a manual in this, which I'd probably think best avoided, because I think that the S-tronic or the DSG is a far better gearbox, and I'll talk to you guys more about that on the drive. You can get this in a diesel. Now that all depends on, you know, your personal circumstances in terms of how many miles you do and whatnot, but I think there's like a 2-litre diesel that they offer this car in, and then they do like a 2-litre petrol, which will be highly inefficient, and they do this one, which is the 1.4 TFSI, which I think probably is going to be the pick of the bunch, as long as it's got enough poke in the car. Now you can get this with Quattro or 2-wheel drive option, which is this one, so it's front wheel drive only. And again, really depends on if you really need the Quattro system for this car, and you know, whether you are actually going to be, you know, utilizing that. Most of the drivers that would be buying something like this, or you know, that I see driving. They usually do a lot of town driving, you know, picking up the kids from school, you know, got like a little toddler, using it for like, you know, practicality point and whatnot. So I think the Quattro would probably not be, you know, the go-to option. So this, from that point, make the best kind of choice from an engine point as well as the drive. So I've been living with this car for about 2 weeks. It's a relative's car who's left it with me while they're away, and I've been using it as a daily. So going to work, going to the gym, going for my weekly shopping, doing all sorts, you know, filling the boot up with all sorts of stuff as well, and it's been really practical from that point. In terms of driving, you can't get away with the fact that, you know, you are sitting in a slightly raised driving position, which I think has been pretty good because it gives you a great view of the road ahead, and overall visibility around the car is pretty decent. You've got some decent sized wing mirrors as well, which really help towards like the daily driving. It does have good road manners as well. The steering is quite light, the gearbox is decent, and I say decent because it does kind of jitter around when it's cold, so you know, you do get a lot of jerkiness, and I think that's just a characteristic of the DSG Ostronic gearboxes. Overall, I think it's very practical. You know, I don't have any issues with like getting 6-footers in the back like once I did, like when I was at work and going out for lunch. It's absolutely fine from that point. Like I say, driving wise, you're not really going to be throwing this car around any corners, so on a day-to-day basis it's pretty decent. I mean, if you go around a roundabout quite quick, it's not going to fall over or anything, and from that point it feels fairly safe. I think the gearbox can be a little bit better in something like this, and it's just that it's quite jerky when you start, you know, when you're pulling into drive or into reverse and you're doing some low speed maneuvers. I think that's my only sort of criticism on this particular car. You do get a good kind of pedal feel with like the brakes and all of that as well, so everything just seems to be, let's say, made for everyday driving, which is, you know, really good. I mean, even the dimensions of this car is essentially probably just as big as like an A3 from the outside. Might be a little bit bigger, but it's not huge per se, so it's easy to kind of find out where like the 4 corners of the car are and literally point it into like a corner, and without having to worry about you going over a line or a lane. So yeah, I think it's quite a nice place to be and drive. It definitely feels premium. Now again, coming back down to the original part of this vid, which was if you had a 10 to 15k budget, is this the car that you would, you know, consider? I definitely think that it would be. I think there's quite a few brands and models out there, you know, in that kind of category of price. You know, you got so many variants from like BMW, Mercedes, even VW as well. I mean, the Tiguan is probably another option. It depends on, like, say, the size as well of the car that you're looking to buy. So one thing about the S-Tronic gearbox is that it allows you to change gears manually by using the gear selector, flicking it to the left, or by using the flappy paddles on the steering wheel. I'll be quite honest, and you can ask yourself the same question if you've ever used the flappy paddles on your regular car. Now, in my GTI, yes I do. In my Audi A7, I don't, and in my M4, I always did. So it's having the option, but you're probably never really going to be using it. So it's kind of like it's there if you want to, but it's not going to do anything to the driving experience as such. You're probably just going to get in the car, stick it into drive and get the best out of using the car like that on a daily basis. And it's also going to optimize your fuel economy as well. Unless this was an RS Q3, which they do in this shape, you'd probably want to then use the flappy paddles, but in this, I don't think you'll ever will. I think for around 10 grand you probably get a nice looking pre-facelift model with probably a few options. If you're looking at the higher end of, like, say, the price band at 15k, you'd probably get something a bit like this, which is a base S-Line but with decent miles. I mean, this has only got like 43,000 miles with a full Audi service history, and I think that's quite important as well. I think a full Audi service history, you know, being serviced regularly with all the brake fluids done and cam barb and another puddle and water pump and all of that being done timely, I think is quite important as well. You could possibly even get one at the higher end price with some really nice options. It's a shame that these don't have a pan roof, because I think if we did have a pan roof, the amount of visibility and light generally within the cabin would be pretty decent. I'm not even sure whether that was an option or not. So if I was in the market looking for an Audi Q3, here's what I would be looking for. It'd be a facelift, it'd be an S-Line, probably with a few additional options. I'd try and find one with like 19-inch alloy wheels for a bit of street cred. In terms of quattro or no quattro, well, I don't think I'd be fussed. I'd probably go for a two-wheel drive. In terms of engine, I think this engine, the 1.4 TFSI, is probably the engine of choice for me, because I never had any issues with it in my Golf GT edition. The owner hasn't had any issues with this at 45,000 miles or so, and I think it's an engine that's quite frugal as well. It's got the 2-cylinder shut-off thing, which works, I think, better in this with the S-Tronic gearbox than a manual. I would definitely have the S-Tronic as well rather than the manual, because it makes the whole driving experience a little bit more relaxed. I probably would want to have the full leather. Although these are half leather, you don't get the heated seats. I'm not sure whether that's something that you can get with the full leather. That's something that I would like to check up on. But overall, I think the Q3, for the type of price that it's at, you know, it's a premium car. Everything in this thing just feels like it's built to last, and I think I can't say the same about the equivalent, let's say a Mercedes GLA, for example. Those just feel a little bit more scrappy from inside, whereas this just feels a little bit more kind of, well, screwed better. And I think that's the thing with Audi. When you're buying an Audi of whatever generation, they just feel like they're screwed together a bit better as well. So in my opinion, 10 to 15k, you'd easily get one of these, but it all comes down to what it is that you guys want. And if you are in the market looking for an Audi Q3, if you have found this vid informative, if it has swayed you in terms of going and, you know, considering and buying one of these cars, then definitely give this vid a like. Leave a comment in the comment section below if you agree with, you know, things that I've said, or even if you disagree with it. Let me know if you've had any experiences with your Audi Q3 and you've just stumbled across my vid. Hopefully guys, I'll see you on the next one. Take care, bye.